On behalf of the Board of BFI and on behalf of all the facilitators and volunteers who are here tonight, I welcome you to this wonderful event. I'm Marion Van Arsdell. I'm the president of the Board of Directors for Voices from Inside. I would like the other Board of Director members to stand up so you can be recognized. Some of them are out in the hall still selling tickets. I would like the facilitators who help lead workshops to stand up also and wave your hands so we can see. For those of you who have never heard the women of Voices from Inside read, you are in for a treat. And for all of us who became Michelle Shamuel fans, we are in for a wonderful opportunity to have her talk with us about her creative process. This is a very exciting evening for BFI, and we thank you for being here. We're going to have many thank yous later, but I want to particularly recognize that Amy Stam and Elisa Klein really made this evening happen. We had an idea, but they made it happen. So I would like them to stand for a moment. And Amy, I am asked to remind you to turn off your cell phones, please, so they don't interrupt what you're about to hear. It's my privilege now to welcome Kathy McNally, who is the Executive Director of BFI and who helps to make many things happen. Welcome, Kathy.
Hello, everybody. Hi. So I'm Kathy McNally. I have the great job of being the Executive Director of Voices from Inside. And this is an evening focused on creativity. And how about this for creative? We have people on our Board of Directors that are so crazily committed to our organization that we were sitting around talking about people that we admired, and the name of Michelle Shamuel came up, and our creative board said, we should ask her to come and do something with us. Isn't that so creative? And then Elisa and Amy go and they make it happen. They just make it happen. I'm so grateful to them. Before we begin, I'm going to tell you just a few things about Voices from Inside, but I do want to thank some people because we've got so many people to help us out here. I want to thank Greg Salmon, he's our volunteer photographer, David Rondina, our sound man and tech support, Heidi Stevens, who created, the graphic designer who created the poster, and our security crew, Alexis Greenblatt, Michael Wilmeth, and Jillian, thank you. And then other folks who really have helped us a lot, Denise Bodette, Laura DeTenber, Natalie Lewis, John McNally, Jamie Michaels, Heather Johnson, Katie Parker, Lonnie Morton, Kathy Regali, and thanks very much to Monty and the folks from WSRSI for the interview, and Bill Newman on WHMP for the interview on his show. So we, the people on our board, took this crazy leap and reached out to Michelle Shamuel, and she, with unbelievable grace and generosity, said, sure, I'll work with you guys and do an event to do it. So it was this crazy leap. It was a little taste of the leap that was taken in 1999 by Sarah Weinberger and Carolyn Benson, who were joined by Karen Baczynski, going into the main institution in Ludlow, that's the Ludlow Correctional Institution of Hampden County, and they said, you know what, we love these writing groups, and we want to bring writing groups to women in jail. I wonder if it will work. And now, 1,200, 1,300 women later, it has worked. And here's how it started. Carolyn and Benson and Karen Baczynski and Sarah Weinberger were all trained in a method called Amherst Writers and Artists, and that we call that the AWA method. That method was created by our local treasurer, Pat Schneider. And so we follow that method. I'm going to tell you a few key things about that in a few minutes. But that was 15 years ago, and since then we've reached about 1,500 women. We also work with adolescent girls in secure facilities, and now we're branching out a little bit to work with women at risk of incarceration in residential programs. We've published 2 anthologies of the women's writing, so we have hundreds, probably thousands of writings, mostly poetry that we've published. We have dozens and dozens of chapbooks that we've published. Both of those, I have to mention, are for sale in the back of the room, as well as these wonderful t-shirts that we wear, and the t-shirts say, "My greatest secret, I keep on a piece of paper," which was one from one of our poets. In addition to our writing groups, we offer leadership training. We train women who have been in our workshops to become writing group leaders, and then they go out and they act as incredible role models for the women in groups, whether they're in facilities or release programs. And all the women tonight have been trained to work as facilitators. And finally, the last thing we do, and the thing you're going to see tonight, is something we call VFI Out. And that happens when women in our programs who are released come out to the public to read or perform their writing. So we love to do that. We're doing it tonight a little bit. We have a gig in Holyoke, October 26th on Saturday night in Gateway City Arts in the Canal section in a really wonderful space. We'll be doing it there, a whole program of us. And save the date, we're having a gigantic fundraising breakfast April 3rd in Springfield, because we're trying to have a stronger presence in Springfield where we do our work. We hope that you'll consider, as you see this work, joining us as volunteers. There's lots of sign-up sheets in the back, there's cards in the pews that you can use to sign up, and you can be a volunteer in a number of ways, a volunteer facilitator, or help us out in any number of ways. We'd love to have you work with us. So before we begin, I'll just give a brief introduction of the women who are going to read. I'd like to tell you just the five affirmations of Pat Schneider and Amherst writers and artists, because they're at the heart of what we do, and I think they're very much related to what Michelle and Alex are going to talk about. And here they are. Number 1, everyone has a strong, unique voice. Number 2, everyone is born with creative genius. Number 3, writing as an art form belongs to all people, regardless of economic class or educational level. Number 4, the teaching of craft can be done without damage to a writer's original voice or artistic self-esteem. And number 5 is, a writer is someone who writes. So, we are going to hear some of those writers. Our first writer is going to be Sue Ann Adams. Sue Ann has been involved in VFI as a participant and a facilitator and a performer. She's also a board member. Sue Ann is invaluable to me. I could not survive my job without Sue Ann helping me. She's the mother of her own children and many more because she has a nurturing instinct. She's a student at the Elms College. Many of the women who work with us do go on to college, and Sue Ann is doing great, just started at the Elms. She's looking forward to moving into the new home she bought in Ludlow on Friday. And because Sue Ann is on our board, and she is always thinking about VFI, she wanted me to say, Sue Ann wants to thank all of our financial supporters who make it possible for VFI to continue reaching out to women in Western Mass, and she hopes one day to take our program worldwide. So, Sue Ann.
So, hi, I'm Sue Ann, as you heard. I was introduced to writing, I just wrote this in the pew, so bear with me, in the early 90s through the away method, and then I got to go on vacation. I got involved with VFI through Karen Wyszynski, thank you. It's been a real lifesaver, and I've been around for about a minute or so. So how are all of you? Good? Good, yeah. Did you notice the changing leaves come in? Yeah. Makes me think of fall. So here's a nice fall poem for you. An apple for the teacher. Thwap. The sound echoed off the concrete walls. What the fuck? He screamed as he turned to see. I am so sorry. I got teeth yesterday and I feel like I'm getting used to them. He screamed as he turned to see what was causing the searing pain. He dropped his keys just inside the yellow line separating his square from the next. Thwap. 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 The apples shot out of the ball propeller rapidly, throwing him off balance. The pigeons flew up all around him, startling him further. She had thrown the breadcrumbs under his car hours before and waited patiently. Thwap, thwap, thwap. Through the apples, smashing into him and the concrete walls behind him, she saw him stumble. She enjoyed watching his pain. Too bad she had to inflict it from so far away. She wished she could wrap her hands around his neck, be close enough for him to see the hatred in her eyes, just as he had done to her. Make him plead, beg, apologize for his stupidity, just as he had taught her. Thwap, thwap, thwap. The police would stand around the limp, bloody body sprayed across the sidewalk, looking up at the edge of the parking structure, and wonder, why did he jump? She swung her bright red duffel bag over her shoulder, watched the birds finish off every pulp, core, crumb, and walked down the exit ramp, happy with her accomplishment as she bit into an apple. In this one you are too drunk. In this one you are too old. In this one you are too messy. In this one you are too young. In this one you are not alone. I sit on the floor surrounded by photo albums and loose, unbound pictures. They want me to pick one for your memoriam card. It will sum up your life, printed in the paper along the 1-inch square. Some of these I recognize, most I don't. Who are these people? Who were you then? God, you were beautiful. I start over. In this one you are with the whole family. In this one you are with a puppy. In this one you are alone, sitting on a rock, in yellow striped tennis shoes, half smiling, the water blue and black behind you, the sand vanilla white in front. In this one you are, the real you. Requested of a lot, but I want to warn you, it's a little risque. It's called Application for a Date. Hey baby, what's your sign? What color are your eyes? Do you have a criminal record? Do you work? How many children do you have, alive or dead? And with how many women? Do you know where they are? Are you a Republican or a Democrat? Any pets? And what's your bowling score? How much coffee do you drink in a day? Are you a friend of Bill's? In case of fire, would you break the glass? Who's your dentist? What's your favorite flower, movie, sexual position? Do you sit on your porch at night and listen to life? Or do you sit hunched over a keyboard, demanding it listen to you? Do you prefer the predictable and normal? Or have you grown old enough to realize that it all is? Thank you.
So much, Sue-Ann. Our next reader is Maggie Morales. She has been a performer with us for quite a while, and she is a new facilitator at one of our pre-release workshops, and we're very happy to have Maggie.
My name is Maritza Morales, but I prefer Maggie. I've been writing for a very long time. No matter what was going on in my life, it's always something that made me feel like I wasn't alone or I wouldn't be judged. I participate and facilitate in VFI, which has been a very positive influence in my life. So I'm very grateful to be here tonight and to be involved in VFI. So, the teacher. As a kid, her favorite game was playing teacher. She was the only girl and the youngest of 3. Her brothers rarely wanted to play the same games as she. They all had many toys, so dolls and stuffed animals were bountiful. Out, 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 she'd say. It's time to learn. You better wear your thinking caps today. She'd line them up as neatly as she could on her full-size bed. Mom and Dad would walk by and smile as they kept going. She'd use books, the mini chalkboard Dad bought her, and lots of tape and paper to create a classroom. She named her students. Teach reading and writing, Spanish and English, but mostly discipline. Quiet. Stop tapping your pencil. Your mommy will hear about this, Billy. Some child abuse too, when she popped the students' heads with her ruler. Eventually she tired and would continue for herself, becoming gentle again, even apologizing to the babies, because they were her babies. She'd clean up and take one or two of the babies and go outside for some science, her favorite class. Nature class, she called it. Studying mushrooms, Dad's tomato plants, Mom's flowers, the bees, flies, anything outside from Mother Earth. She happened to be the only girl, but as long as she had her imagination, she was never alone. This one is called Rising. So many times I've found myself in deep, dark places, questioning myself. Why do I do this? Is it worth coming out when I usually end up back here anyways? It sucks everything out of me, mentally, physically, emotionally. I'm drained either way, if I stay or go. The light of my soul dims, my dreams fade. Love and the desire to live that dwell inside of me, it's not the same. In between the ins and outs, I've rebuilt before, brick by brick. I've believed in myself and watched everything inside of me come back to life. So when I use bad judgment, I have to face those and deal with the results each and every time. But I never have to stay down. I will never simply quit. It's not in me to walk away from life. The same place that gives me that negative talk also flows with inspiring messages if I'm listening. It's all inside of me. It doesn't matter if I fall. What matters is that I continue to rise. This one's called The Soldier's Legacy. I needed to be free, but I didn't know how to go about it. I remember seeing the birds and watching as they flew by and wondering how their tiny heads had more sense than mine. It appeared from nowhere because I don't remember exactly when or where it happened. Yeah, I saw others that I knew doing it, but I thought I still couldn't do it no matter what. Then all at once, I began to believe. This information started to make sense to me. I started to feel a freedom in my heart that I never knew existed. All that happened, all that pain, that fear, that anger and darkness began to diminish. I started to believe in myself, in the beauty of my dreams, and no one could take that away. The possibilities are limitless. I'm a soldier in and out. I no longer have to live by the sword, for I have survived. And my legacy will be that of a woman who made it out and carried on to make some of her dreams come true. Those that are left behind are for the next woman to realize. Thank you.
Hall. Christine has been involved with VFI as a participant, a facilitator, and a performer. She lives in Springfield, Mass. She also is a student. She's a student at Cambridge College, and we are so thrilled to have her. She'd like to thank her partner, Andrea, for her love and support.
Hi, I'm Christina. I've been writing since as long as I can remember. It was always a way for me to make sense out of my thoughts and feelings. It wasn't until I went to jail that I realized the most important thing writing gave to me. It gave me a voice. In a place where people told me what to wear, when to eat, when to speak, I was able to find a place for 2 hours a week that I could be free. The writing group gave me an opportunity to release my experiences onto paper and to share what I had written with others. All of these women who have been through so much in their lives were given a place where they could tell their story, a place where people would listen. This is something left behind. I'm thinking about what it is that I want to leave you with when I'm gone. Nobody really means to touch some of the lives that they touch. Nobody really means for harsh words to stick and to determine the path of another. Will I leave you with happiness or pain? Did I depart from you with smiles or tears? Did my words come out like poison, or did they drip from me like honey? When I am gone, will you read what I have written and know that I am sorry? Will you finally get to see the life that I hid from you, the me I couldn't show you? Will you see that I wrote down all of my hate for you, but on this day I forgive you? And just in case there's no time to say, my last words to you should have been, I love you. This is called The Belt. I walked into a secondhand store, some Salvation Army type thing. I needed a belt, a brown leather belt. I used to have one at one time, but along with everything else I ever had, it was lost, stolen, or discarded. I walked to the shelf that held all the belts and started to dig. At the very bottom of the pile, a brown leather belt with a faded brass buckle, the leather so worn with use and time. I knew this belt. I remember this belt. How could I not recognize this belt? I had spent many hours, days, years with this belt around my arm trying to find a vein. And here's this belt, here in this store, complete with tear stains and a discolored spot that no longer looked like the blood that it was. My first thought was, who took my belt? Why would they bring it here? Old and worn as it was, with the 3 extra holes punched hastily as the pound shed from my belly. Why on earth would anyone buy this belt? This belt belonged to me. It was oozing and dripping with my memories. A memory of a junkie. This belt that spent so much time around my waist and my arm will never leave this dusty shelf, at least not with me. Thank you.
I so appreciate the writing that our women do and then share it so openly and generously with the crowd. So I just want to thank you very much. The beautiful, moving writing that you've heard here tonight is a small portion of the writing that gets produced by women in drab rooms in correctional facilities all throughout Hampden County. Women, 10 to 12, 14 women each week for a series of 8 weeks gather and write together. And then the facilitators work with them to encourage them to write and to find the beauty and value in what they write. Our method, as described and developed by Pat Schneider, is all about finding the beauty in what people write. And when we do that, our writers and all of us are able to produce so much more. The second part of that equation is the magnificent facilitators that we have that give hours and hours to planning and working in the jails, and then working on women's writing, giving them feedback, and typing it up. And we couldn't do that without the thousands of hours that volunteers have given us for so long. That's not to discourage you if you want to volunteer. We can fit every schedule. So, I think now we're going to turn to our interview portion, and I want to set it up for you by telling you that when we decided to have this event, and Amy and Elisa made it happen, I would say to people, we're having this event, and I would say, I don't know if you've watched that television show and seen Michelle Chamuel, The Voice, and people would go, oh my gosh, I love her. And I thought it was so funny, because normally when you bring up TV in the Valley, everyone always says, Oh, I don't actually own a television. Oh, gosh. So I said, we all pretended that The Voice was on PBS. So I want to tell you, we're going to have an interview format. So it's kind of going to be like a little Terry Gross, only better. Because we have tonight to interview, our host tonight is Alex Peterson. Alex Peterson is the marketing coordinator right across the street at the Median Education Foundation, and many of you know that, but it's a nonprofit organization that produces and distributes educational documentary films that inspire critical thinking about social, political, and cultural impact of American mass media. They are fantastic, the work they do. She studied theater at the University of Puget Sound. She served on the board of Valley Free Radio. She's co-hosted a weekly radio show on WHMP. She was born in Saudi Arabia, and she's lived, is this true? Singapore, Vienna, Dubai, and Seattle, and now, to top it all, she lives in downtown Holyoke, all right? Just been straight up. And our next guest is Michelle Shamuel. Michelle is a Massachusetts-born recording artist who's been making music since she was 4. She earned her BFA in music technology at the University of Michigan, where she became the front woman for the rock band Ella Riot. Yeah. The band operated for 5 years before going on hiatus in 2011. And of course we know that Michelle also worked at the Woodstar right around the corner in the same building as the Media Education Foundation, right? So you might have heard this. In 2012, Michelle participated on season 4 of NBC's The Voice, teaming up with international entertainment icon Usher Raymond and taking home 2nd place. Now Michelle returns to Western Massachusetts to create music and continue the elusive quest for entertainment. She has just released her debut album, All I Want, as the Reverb Junkie. We have some copies for sale up there. And welcome to Michelle.
Elusive quest for enlightenment. That's good. Bam.
One more thing to mention, there's going to be a Q&A portion at the end of this evening, so if you have any questions for anyone who read, that would be Maggie and Christina and Sue-Ann, or Michelle, you can take an index card from folks walking around and jot down a question, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So please do write some questions down if you have them. Michelle.
I just want to start off with all that reading was incredible and moving and mind-blowing. It's wonderful and really supporting the right to express yourself and celebrate that, because it is beautiful and meaningful and helps all of us, each and every one of us. So kudos to all of us. Especially you guys.
All right, well, let's just jump right into this conversation, which is really all about creativity and creative process and the right to express yourself. So I'm curious, just to get some background, how did you start creating music?
I think the progression between generating sound and turning that into music was a gradual process. I think I left the womb just screaming. That was, for my first 3 years of life, I screamed. I was expressing some deep angst, I'm not sure. But over time, it turned into me sitting at the piano or learning violin from my dad or trying to imitate the sounds that my mom was playing on the record player and turning that into a more focused form of expression, which I later found out was music.
What kind of music did you grow up listening to? What was playing in your house? What did you grow up listening to?
Yeah, it was a pretty wide variety of stuff. Both my mom's side of the family and dad's side of the family are refugees from North Africa. And so they grew up in a French colony. Their first language is French. And they also spoke a little bit of Arabic. So a lot of Arabic folk music, French folk music, also Michael Jackson. And I know, my dad was big into classical music. So I was whistling Tchaikovsky by age 3, I think. He would just keep whistling it until I got it. And then Diana Ross, Barbra Streisand, Peter, Paul, and Mary, a lot of stuff. And then as I grew up a little more, I fell in love with the top 40. And I would listen to it every week until I knew every song. So that's pretty formative. And then if you want to get into middle school years, Napster came out, and then you had access to everything. So I listened to a lot of that stuff too, whatever I could find.
So when did you actually start singing? You said you were playing some violin and some other instruments. When did you start singing? Also very, very early?
Yeah, pretty early. I sang like straight away, the screaming evolved into singing. And then I stopped. I don't know why. It just felt way too personal. And there's something like exposed that I just completely stopped in 4th grade. And then in 7th grade, I heard a Dixie Chicks song called Wide Open Spaces. And I just wanted to make that sound. And so like the line between resonating sounds in your body and making music is very small, just like the difference between conversing with you, writing something down and making art. It's all, it's a little blurry. So it started out as me wanting to make these sounds that I heard these people making. And then over time I discovered Christina Aguilera, and I kept trying to imitate that feeling and that sound, because for me, you can't quite make a sound without feeling it. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but you resonate a certain way. In the same way that you play a violin string and the whole violin shakes. I wanted my whole body to resonate and make this sound. So I kept doing it and doing it for years, starting in 7th grade up until now. And it started with imitation and then slowly evolved to making my own music.
How has education factored into your creative development?
That's huge. For me, technology is a huge part of how I'm able to manipulate my voice. And
We'll get into technology later.
And I was very fortunate to be able to attend Wellesley High School. And they had a music technology program. They taught us to read music from a young age. My dad is self-taught at violin, so he taught me how to play the way he taught himself to play. So that's that type of education, not public school, but his own desire to teach himself helped me learn, develop my ear, develop my sense of rhythm. And then Wellesley picked up right where he left off and really taught us to read, the full staff of music and learn about timing and gave us access to instruments. And then the icing on the cake was the music technology program. It opened up a whole new world for me. So
It's really weird for a high school.
super weird. But I'm so glad. Mr. Scott, I think it's Steven Scott, the director of music at the time, he put that program together. It started out really small, just a little booth in a corner with a microphone, and over time he developed it, and I learned a lot from him and from that program.
That's great.
So good.
I'm still getting over how cool that would have been to have that at my high school.
So cool.
Your most recent album is called All I Want, and on that album you have a lot of creative control. You had a lot of creative control working on the album. You self-produced it, right? Which means that you created all the sounds, and you created the concept and the artwork, and you recorded it, you mixed it, you did everything. Why did you want to have a lot of creative control over this album? Why did you feel like that was important to you now?
That's a good question. It evolved naturally. I had been in a band for 5 years before the band went on hiatus, and in that, it was at a time a 7-piece Democratic band. which means that 7 people were deciding the outcome of every single musical product that was made. It took forever to get music done, and it was so painstaking. We had these 11-minute compositions that went between genre and genre. I mean, it was so fun to play, and people really loved to see it live, and then they understood the albums. But man, it was just, you'd have an idea, and be like, oh, I want to play something really simple, and then before you knew it, it turned into this full-blown, 15-minute piece with one section and 11 and one section featuring saxophones, and someone else had to just totally change the bass groove, and you're like, all right, whew. So went from a 7-piece democratic band to a 5-piece with 3 people running it. And even then, it was just a really long process to collaborate in that way. So after doing this for many years, I started writing my own music. And actually being in that band, it's something that I found all of us have this issue where we felt that we weren't good enough on our own. And nothing we did was good enough. So like, I could sing better than anyone else in the band. Tyler and Bob could produce better than anyone else in the band. So I wouldn't produce, they wouldn't sing. Everyone was a little stifled in their boxes. And we all love each other very much and wanted to support each other, but just when we were all together, it didn't happen. So the more time we had out of it, I was like, this is something I really want to do. I want to see it from start to finish. So all I wanted was to make an album that was mine, where I didn't have to check in with someone, oh, does this lyric just do it for you? Because lots of times the feedback would be like, oh, just do it for me. You have to go and change it. Like, oh man. So I got to express exactly what I wanted to express, and that's that. You're awesome.
So I understand the things that you gained and the thrill and sort of challenge that it took to kind of take on all the hats of producing an album. But I'm also curious, when you do something solo, was there anything that you feel like you gave up or you sacrificed by doing it that way?
Time. A lot of time. This album was in the works for about a year and a half maybe or something. I don't know, since I moved here. And that's about it. That's the only thing. And you lose other people's perspective and input because there was no space for it, and I just wanted to do my thing. And that was that.
How do you begin working on a song? Like, do you come up with a general feeling that you want to go for, or do you start with a specific germ of an idea? How do you start?
Each song is different. And what actually got me involved in the band in the first place is my friend Bob played me an instrumental track. And this was a time when I didn't produce very much at all, even though I understood it, and I was going to school for it and do it.
And when you say produce, like when you say producer, what do you mean by that?
That's a good question. To clarify, I'm using it as the person in charge of the track. So you can have a vocal part and you can have the music part, like all that stuff, and then the singing and the melody. So that's how we split it up. So he had a track that he had produced himself, and it had energy in it, it had a vibe, and he had a title. And so from there, I heard a melody over it. It's kind of hard to, if I started beatboxing and there was a rapper, the rapper might start hearing rhymes in his head. It's the same, you start to generate melodies over chords. So that's how it works in that type of collaboration. On my own, it can vary. Like a melody will get stuck in my head, or I'll just start making sounds.
Is it usually sounds, or do lyrics ever come to you first? Like, which chicken or the egg? Music or the lyrics?
It's been both. Normally it's music and sounds, and then I'll create the actual song part, the vocals, based on the vibe in the track. But there's a track on All I Want called Selfish, and this line got stuck in my head. It's like, selfish, selfish girl. And then it turned into a song. It's like, selfish, selfish girl. All right, cool, we can roll with this.
You talked about technology. Can you explain what these things are in front of you?
Sure. I brought this stuff this evening to expand the, you can hear a melody, but there's so many other ways that you can think about sound. So I brought this to kind of delve into it a little bit. I'm going to switch microphone setups here, David. Right, it's going to be all gloomy. You mind muting this for a sec? This guy? No? Still on? That's going to go. All right. So we happen to be in a space, check, that has a lot of natural reverb. Thanks, guys. Amazing. Thank you. That's cool. So I was hoping to kind of show you more about what reverb is, but you're not really going to know. But if you listen to the space after I talk, there's a tail to what you hear, right? Okay, so that's reverb, and reverb gives us a sense of space. So if I was in a closet, it would sound a lot smaller. But we're in a big space, and my voice goes out and bounces off the walls a bunch of times until it stops. So you can play with reverb, and I'm going to turn it on, but you probably won't hear it. And you can play with emphasizing different words, changing space. I'm now in a bigger space. I could be in a giant room. It changes the tone. I'm also changing my voice, but if you hear in movies, like the God voice is always like, "What are you doing?" So you can use this in music to differentiate. Even going from a chorus to a verse, you want maybe a bigger space for your chorus and a smaller space for your verse, and you can change that with reverb. Another thing you can play with is called delay, and that is like this. Delay. Hey. So you can use that to give a rhythmic quality to what you're doing. It's also a more subtle form of reverb. So if I were to keep talking while I have the delay on, you start to hear that something is building up. It's a little bit of a momentum, it's a little bit of a wave behind what I'm saying. It thickens it up so that it's not so dry. And the next thing I play with is called formant shifting and pitch shifting. So I'm just
gonna put it on my voice right
We're gonna have Alex ask me a question, and then here you go, Alex. I'm just gonna put it randomly in the middle while you're talking.
Michelle, will you tell us your favorite
joke. Awesome.
So that's something fun to play with. And as you can hear, when you shift a format, like...
Shift a format.
I can shift formats on my own. I can start to talk like this. This is essentially what that is doing, but I don't have to do it. And lastly, this thing here is trigger that thing. But this is a keyboard. It's a sampler. It does a lot of cool stuff, but we're not focusing on that today. We're focusing on the harmonizer, which makes harmonies happen. I can sing one note into it, and it will harmonize. It'll take that and... So, a person that made this, that was very influential to me, she made this very popular, is Emikan Sudan. And you might know this song. When were we?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on? The dust has only just begun to fall. Crop circles in the carpet. She's so dead. So, that's that harmonizer there. And my last demonstration into this is very brief. I could go on forever about effects and things. And I'm just going to show you how important it is to me creatively to have control over the technology. And I'm going to preface this with a little story. I went to a songwriting camp that my mom was very awesome and sent me to because she saw how much I loved it. And I went there for 2 weeks and wrote songs I felt great about. They were super angsty. And at the end, we got a CD. We recorded them, and I was so excited to play them. And I got home, and I put this, it wasn't home, I don't know what I'm talking about. Why do stories change? I had the thing, and I was so excited. I got this disc, I put it in. I was like, oh, what is this? This is horrible. This sounds so different. What on earth? And it was like the reverb was all wrong. I was trying to be intimate, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, my angsty song has this floofy reverb and a weird delay on it. And I was like, what is happening? And I was like, all right, guys, this doesn't sound like what I wanted. And they're like, okay, well, if you want to control that, honey, you have to study music technology. So I switched then and there. And last but not least, here's a little demo about taking a melody, just a simple, let's see, what I need to find out a key. All right, we're gonna be in A. Oh. So taking off all effects, if I'm sitting here trying to write a melody, oh, 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 I'm nervous, so my diaphragm is shaking. This is more nerve-wracking than television. I'm trying to get these notes out. Oh, oh. So take that, and then you can play with some delay and effects, and it changes the vibe completely. So, you add some harmonies. So, that's one melody. Technology, creativeness, natural fingertips, for me. Sometimes all you need is a pen and paper. Sometimes you need all this stuff. So, that's that.
Professor Samuel, everybody. Well, could you actually talk a little bit more? I mean, it seems like technology is, like, how would you have been a musician 50 years ago without these kinds of, or how many years ago before these things were invented? How do you feel like you would have been a different musician without tools like this?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking like ancient times. Because you can do a lot of stuff, like the people that did the first recordings with tape, where they recorded the whole song on tape once, and then recorded it, and no, they copied the tape and then played it slightly after it, so you had this kind of delay the whole time. You know, people have been playing with this pretty early, and I think I might have been playing, but I don't know, I would have had to have music in a cave, and then music on the beach, all different ambiences, get people to play music with me. That's the thing too, is you can do it all on your own. So if I hear like a choir in my head, I can just go and record it 20 times. It's not the same as a real choir, but you know, I think you have to work with other people more, which might be a good thing. I'm being hermit-like about my music.
So you had us listen to a lot of sounds, but I am curious about lyrics, and I'm curious about sort of the writing that goes along with the song and the lyrics. And when you're writing your lyrics, do you find that there are certain themes or ideas that you keep finding yourself returning to? Like you mentioned, it's one idea that was kind of leaping in your mind, that selfish girl, and I'm curious if there are things that keep coming back to you, keep revisiting with your lyrics.
Absolutely. As much as I would like to say no, everything is super original, you can hear it develop over time, but a lot of my songs are about interactions with other people or interactions with myself. And I don't know why that is. You know, it's very personal to what I experience. Like, just human relationships are fascinating to me, especially this one-on-one thing that happens and how intense that can get. But yeah, that's mainly the themes. If you hear it, it's a lot of themes like that.
Whether you're performing or if you're recording, can you talk a little bit about how you think about interpreting the lyrics to a song? You know, sort of like the arrangement and how you convey the emotional story of the lyrics, how you interpret the lyrics.
Totally. As a listener, or as, like, I interpret someone else's lyrics, or
How
how
you take lyrics and then use your voice to interpret them to the listener.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would liken that to acting, oddly enough. Except it's a little easier because a lot of times you wrote your own script, you wrote your own lines. So the tremble in your voice in one thing is because you're feeling it, not like, okay, I'm going to imagine myself that situation that I was in. But then you get into that in performance. Like, I've sang songs 300 times, and you go back there and you deliver it to somebody new, or use it as a new lens to see, maybe the same lens to see a new situation, I'm not sure. But I also think chords have a huge part of lyric delivery. I can show you something about that. So, all right, the song "You Are My Sunshine," right? Happy song, not a problem. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. I didn't plan this. So happy. Now, same exact melody, same exact lyrics. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy. No, we need a D. Happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Sad. Horribly sad. Same song. Same melody. The chords underneath it have changed, so you can change that too. Sad song. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Did I answer your what you were hoping? Let's talk a little bit more about creative process, and I'm curious what kinds of things you do to nurture your creative process. Are there any practices or rituals that kind of keep you going, keep you inspired, keep you grounded?
I go on walks. I love walks, drink enough water, shower enough times a week. And that's not just for the smell. It's like, apparently water is very, it just washes stuff away, and it's good. I'm trying to meditate more. It's in my list of 2014 goals. Yes, I made those already. Meditate 20 minutes a day. I'm not there yet, and I write sometimes. Just, get the thoughts out so they're not banging around inside your head. How about you?
Yoga. That's what I did this morning. Yeah.
Get over yoga!
When you sit down to do some songwriting or composing, are there certain moods that you found are more conducive for creating than others?
That's also a very fascinating question. I think, not like for me, it's become
Everything.
Yeah.
All moods.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you can feel like you're hungry or you're not hungry. It's like, okay, there's an idea I want to get out, or there's not. But it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm sad, or I've gone through a breakup, or I'm in love, or I'm happy. Like it's gotten to a point now where it's a part of my life. It's what I do every day. So, but I can feel it. It's like, do I want to eat now? No. Yes. Same type of internal check-in.
And what have you been finding or taking some creative inspiration from these days? Is there anything that you've been reading or listening to or watching that has seeped into your creative work or inspired some creative work?
Definitely, there's a lot of stuff. I've watched and taken a lot of media. There's there's this artist called Burial, he's been around for a while. His first album was so strange and played with so many weird things. It's definitely shaped a lot of what I do. And same with Emikan, who does a lot of this stuff. But I mean, for example, the readings that I heard this evening, that is going to go into my bank of life-shaping things, and it's going to come out in its own way. So in this whole event, like everything you experience goes and comes out in a certain way.
I think that part of the reason why so many people connect with you as a musician and connected with you on The Voice is because of how grounded and authentic you seemed on the show. And I think that must be really hard to do in a situation like that. You know, like it's a big show and there's all these lights and, you know, there's just naturally a certain degree of artifice. How are you able to maintain that sense of authenticity in that situation? It just seems like something that would be really hard to do.
I understand that, and it was a struggle because I had a lot of negotiations, like no high heels. Yes, some people might call it being difficult or fighting back. I was like, no eyelashes, no hair extensions, no heel, you know, just, no, I would like this song, I don't want to sing that song, just constant. And so yes, it's difficult to not just go with the flow when these people who know, you know, better than you do what works and what doesn't. And to say, no thank you, I want to do it my way to these people that have been in the industry for years it's hard. But at the same time, it's easy because I had no other choice. I had auditioned season 3 as well as season 4. And when I did season 3, I was a little more go with the flow, trying to flow with the vibe that you're describing. I ended up getting the flu, I was stressed out, just went home. For me, being able to do it as myself was the only thing that was what made it worth it, because, man, 40,000 people audition for that show every year. And if I'm not gonna go on that stage and be me, then someone else can do it. You know, there's no point. There's absolutely no point. So, I had to do it.
It's a quote from Oscar Wilde that says, you might as well be yourself because everyone else is taken.
I love that. I love it.
So I'm curious how that experience, how would you translate that into advice to give to other musicians or artists in general?
I think the biggest thing that I'm working on learning right now, as far as trying to digest that into advice, is it's okay to take time and listen to yourself, because even if other people know better because they have more experience, the only person that really knows is you. There's no one else. No one else can tell you how to be a better you. So taking the time, if someone says, hey, do this, and it's someone you really respect, and you know, just take some time, digest it, think about how you feel. It's okay, you know, take a minute and figure it out. If it's right for you, do it. If not, don't. But there's no rush.
I just want to pause for a moment because I remembered what I said before about that we're going to have Q&A at the end. So if you, just a reminder, if you do have any questions, you can raise your hand and someone will.
And I was like, oh cool, more crab apples. And I went and it was like this prickly looking weird. I was like, oh god, it's a trick tree. It's poisonous. And so my roommate was like, no, this is cool. Poisonous tree. So she was like, don't worry, it's totally cool. I know this. This is the dogwood fruit. It's actually great. And I was like, I don't know about that. So we decided to, anyway, this doesn't matter. We ate them, they were great. But she was like, there's this word that we have in Russian that describes this taste. And you don't have it in English. And I was like, oh man. And that's what it feels like. The word is, it's like, if anyone's ever eaten like a persimmon or a cucumber that's not quite in your mouth, it's kind of numb. There's a word for that in Russian. That's like, there's no word to describe the complexity of the feeling. So it's like, in Russian? I don't know. My roommate knows. But it's like that. It's like you can't, there's just nowhere to grab it. It exists in space, but I can't say it.
I feel like fear is connected with creativity, just inevitably. And I'm curious, what role, if any, does fear play in your creative process, both in terms of like writing and composing and practicing, as well as performing and sharing your work? And I guess I'm curious about the ways in which fear can be really like stifling or be an obstacle, but also perhaps the ways in which fear can be illuminating or helpful.
I'm curious, how can fear be, I mean, I know there's an answer, but do you have anything in mind as far as how fear could be helpful? Like, I'm just curious.
Well, like sometimes fear about something, you might realize your own limitations, and that like brings fear because you realize, oh, here's something that I don't know yet, or here's something that I can't do yet. But because fear has sort of helped you discover that, then it's illuminating and you can sort of go beyond it. I mean, that would be like one example.
That's cool.
Maybe it's never worked out.
No, I'm sure that's a great way to describe it. I might not have ever thought of it that way. Which is why I was like, I wonder if you have something in mind conceptually. Fear, for me, is something definitely that is more stifling. I guess fear can also be unstifling in that I would be afraid to feel stagnant and to not be able to express myself. So that fear of not being myself, I guess, therefore would motivate some type of action towards it. But in general, I think I read somewhere that fear is, like, if it's actually happening, you're not going to be afraid of it. Because you're going to be thinking about the next thing. You know what I mean? Like if God forbid something's, your house is burning or whatever, you're not going to be worried that your house is going to burn down. You're only going to worry about it before it happens. So once it's burning down, you're going to worry about the next thing. You're going to be afraid of, am I going to make it down the stairs? Or, like everything is, so, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to relate that to this, but if you're afraid of it, it's not happening. So.
I'm curious if, when you're putting out new music, just put out a new album, do you ever feel trepidation or nervousness about sharing your music and your creative process, what you just spent the last year and a half creating and working on? Do you ever feel that? Do you ever feel nervousness or hesitation about sharing your work with others?
I think this is related a little bit to something we were talking about before the show, this event. I'm holding a wireless mic. The last time I did this, it was a show. But before I know. But you're saying like that. Can I share this? That you were nervous, and I was like, yeah, I get that. And for me, what helps make me not nervous is kind of zooming out, being like, all right, dear greater power, dear God, whomever, please let this evening go as well as it can possibly go. And everyone to say what he or she needs to say and to take in what he or she needs to take in. And let this evening be blessed, and that's that. And so once you're a part of that type of whole, it's okay, you're not nervous. So in that same way, when the album I'm making, I wasn't nervous about all I wanted. I knew that there were going to be people that were like, what is this? You have chopped up vocals, I can't sing to this, you're hiding your voice, what is this? Blah, blah, it's fine. But I'm not scared because it was part of something greater. I just had to do it. The things that scare me most, I'm writing some music as Michelle Shaniwo, so it's going to be more, with all I want people to like it, but it's not as important because the important part was making it. And I'm trying to stay there, but anytime I veer too far from that, man, yeah, it's nerve-wracking. It's like, are they gonna like it? I don't know. I just put in all this work and they hate it. Oh, it's terrible. That's when you get nervous. But if you're doing it for you, there's nothing to get nervous about. Or something bigger. Yeah.
So, Voices from Inside, we've all heard the mission of the organization tonight, helping women who have been incarcerated find their voices through creative writing. And I yeah, want to thank you guys again for sharing your pieces. And Michelle, when you first learned about the organization, what was it about the mission of the organization and about the women involved in the program that resonated with you?
Yeah, this is a two-tiered answer. The first part is, for me, the right and the ability and the tools for self-expression have been instrumental in me being able to be me and saving me from not being me, which would be a life of misery for myself. So being able to bring awareness and support to a program that helps give other people tools to find their voice and to get in touch with that is crucial. It's something that I've been given and everybody deserves. And so really, really grateful to be able to do that. And the second part is I thought it was going to be really low-key. I didn't think there was going to be an audience. So yeah, but I'm very glad. That's great.
And my final question before we go into the Q&A is, do you have any advice for women as they build or rebuild their lives?
I mean, I might not. I'm trying to build my life, and it has gone and fallen. Like everyone's lives, your highest high and your lowest low is only relative to you. So from my limited experience of 27 years, and the thing that comes to mind right now is be patient with yourself and treat yourself right, because the way that you treat yourself, you're going to treat others. And so having the compassion to be there with yourself no matter what you're going through is very important, because no one else can really be there the same way. So just be patient, be kind, be good to yourself.
Christina, Maggie, Suzanne, you want to come up on stage? And
I'm going to say that actually my aunt has been an influence in my life. This is my aunt, Sue Adams, who's actually encouraged me to get into this program. And I think it's been very influential for me to have a family member as well as somebody that supports me through my own, trials and tribulations. And I've come a long way, so I'm very grateful for that.
For me, is this on? I can remember being 13 and in my 7th or 8th foster home, and they were teachers, and they had books in their house. That was the most amazing thing to me. I never knew people had books in their house. And that introduced the love of learning. And then years later, through Away and VFI, I was taught I could write. And now I want to share that with everybody.
This next question, it's for you four. A lot of people feel like their voices are silenced in jail. How has the experience of being incarcerated affected the way you think about your voice or creative expression?
Well, for me, the voice is stifled in jail. 90% of the time in jail, all you hear is quiet, quiet, be quiet, or lock in. The people that make your voice be heard are the people that bring these writers groups to the jail. Because really that was the only way that my voice could be heard. Because you're just a number in there. You're not a person. And these women that brought this writers group to this jail opened it up, so you are a voice, you are a person, your story can be shared, and it is important.
I remember for me, While I was in jail, I spent a lot of time in solitary confinement because I wouldn't quiet my voice. I was going to say what I wanted to say, and I was going to say it how I wanted to say it and to who I wanted to say it. So I used it in a very negative way. I expressed myself, all the anger that was, I would say mostly not anger, but hurt and pain. I expressed it in an angry way. And, you know, you had to like keep up that front. And I was all about that front. And, you know, and I would sit and I would write, but I'm not going to show anybody what I'm writing. And I'm not going to tell anybody about that. So when CO, when you pack up my stuff to bring it to the hole, just pack that notebook because I want it when I get there. So I would sit in the cell in solitary confinement and I would write. And so, you know, I didn't get to go to BFI because I was, you know, but I read a lot of books and I wrote a lot of, you know, I did do a lot of writing. So I did get introduced to BFI, you know, once I was out. And I really wasn't open to it either. You know, there was, you know, other things to do in jail, like play spades and get in trouble and, you know, watch TV and things like that. But I always wrote. That was always like my release. That was something that, because I felt like that was something positive that I can do because nobody judged me. I could be me. And nobody would have anything negative to say about it. So, that's it.
You know, this next question is kind of related to that. Someone writes, all the BFI readers were incredibly self-possessed, even while exposing very personal or painful experiences. Did it take a lot of work to be able to deliver the poems with such self-assurance, or did it feel natural?
Honestly, it feels very unnatural to get up in front of people and expose yourself to them. But the way that I feel about it is if I don't say it, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know what some people are going through. To be able to share that with others, you know, you still get that feeling like, are these people going to look at me and judge me? But you just have to put it all aside. It's not about that. It's about making your voice heard and making other people understand. And hopefully somebody out there who's going through something can relate to you and understand, and maybe it'll better them. If one person is bettered by what I say, then I've done my job.
I think now it's important to know that I'm not who I was. I'm not that same person. You know, I found something positive to do with my time, with my feelings, and VFI is a part of that. So if I can, like, show someone else, you know, that was then, and this is what I do today, and this is what I went through, but this is where I am. And if I'm here, you can come here too. And if I can help you, then here I am. And that's what it's all about for me.
This next question, this next question is for Michelle. Michelle, do you feel a sense of your ancestry driving you in your creative process?
Damn. Ancestry.
That's what the question is.
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think I have an answer for that yet. I think I need a lot more education to be able to answer that. I do feel, though, that there are ancestry. I don't know. I don't know.
We can move on to the next question.
I think there are like muses, you know, that are like, you gotta write more. We're not letting you sleep. Get it out. There's that. They might be my ancestors.
this next question is also for you, Michelle. Would you consider running a music workshop for incarcerated women?
Ooh, with technology? I think I would consider doing like a group singing workshop, because for me, like, forget all this. You can do a lot to change the shape of your voice with just this, and really resonated. I think, yes, I would consider doing a vocal workshop.
Was that November 12th?
We'll talk after. Next time.
This next question is for anyone. Do you have any methods for beating writer's block?
Put the pen and paper. Start writing. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter the subject, because the minute you start, those intrusive thoughts are going to come, and it's going to flow into this eloquent essay you want to share with the world.
I wish it were that simple. I just have to find something inspiring, a feeling, a thought. Yeah, it takes something, a thought, something has to come in here. And then once it starts, and I've got 2 words on the paper, it's off and running.
For me, if I'm not in touch with myself and what I'm feeling, I can't write. If I can sit there with myself and know how I'm feeling, where I'm at that point, then I can write something. But also the method that they give us, when we go in the writer's script, they give us prompts. They'll give us a sentence or a poem, and we can get inspired by that sentence or by that poem. So there's really no room for writer's block because you have the inspiration in front of you. So that's really how I started. And then how I continued was, like I said, personal checks with myself. Like, if I'm happy, if I know that I'm happy, then I can write something happy. If I'm sad and I know that I'm sad, but if I don't know how I'm feeling, I can't write.
We have time for just one more question. So this question is for Michelle. Most public schools don't have classes like music technology. What are the best ways to connect kids to opportunities to learn about and create music?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are organizations that do have resources. Like, there's a school in Northampton, the NC. Yeah. So I mean, like, I think there are places. This was something that I had just researched and figured out. There was a library. There was just sitting with the radio and music, and I'm lucky that I had figured that out before going into high school, and I was like, oh man, we have this. But I think getting involved with community-based resources and reaching out. I mean, the internet is also a crazy resource. There's a lot of free programs online. There are, used keyboards, whatever. There's stuff you can do, and it doesn't have to come from a public school education.
Well, that's all the time we have left for Q&A, but I know that, Kathy, you'd like to say one thing?
Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, and let's just give it up for Alex. She's still there.
To Michelle and Alex and all our BFI women. And thanks to you for coming and sharing this very crazy, creative combination of things. It's funny, all the deeply sad, moving poetry tonight. I think the thing I found most depressing was that sad version of You Are My Sunshine, right? Man, that was dark. We're going to finish with one final reading from Christina Hall.
Hi again. This is called Pardon Me, Mother. One night, a girl had a dream. She dreamt that she had died. Heaven or hell did not exist. Instead, she spent a period of time, an eternity, or whatever, going back through her life, trying to tie up loose ends, finishing things that were never meant to be unfinished. At the end of her journey of a period of time, she had one final conversation, one final task before she could rest. She found herself on a beach, and sitting by the water was a woman who looked like a stranger, but at the same time familiar. In an instant, she knew that this woman who sat by the water had to be her mother. Slowly, tentatively, she approached. Her mother never turned her head, never acknowledged her presence, but she kept moving toward her anyway. Being ignored wasn't new for her. With conviction, she knew that this must be done. This conversation must be had. But where to begin? I'm sorry. Would you look at me, please? I'm right here in front of you. And with the words came the years of having to struggle without a backbone, and the question that no daughter should ever have to ask. How could you just forget me? A mother's supposed to be a mother no matter what. This girl could see her own mistakes, admitted her own mistakes, as she begged her mother to look at her, asking why it was so hard to forgive her. Why wasn't sorry good enough? And when did she become not good enough to love or even look at? Still, her mother never said a word, even though she waited for a period of time, an eternity or whatever. And with her final words, I love you, Mom, and I forgive you. But just remember, I'm beautiful with or without you. She woke up.